Taylor Hill. I am currently a PhD student in political science at Florida State University, but I am a BYU Idaho political science undergrad. I'm excited to kind of give some information about what life looks like after BYU political science.
Nice. So, so you're funded, right? You're not paying anything for graduate school.
Yes, yeah. So that is one thing that's really nice about most graduate programs in political science is if you are accepted to a program, it generally comes with funding. And so what that looks like is not only is your tuition covered, but you also get a stipend. So I get enough money that I can sort of live off of it, and it's essentially my job. So you can get your PhD, you can get a whole degree without going into debt, without having to pay a penny, but also being paid to do it as well, which is really great.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And you're ultimately hoping to be a professor? Is that the idea?
Yes, yep, that's the goal. That's always kind of been the dream ever since I was like in high school, probably. I've always wanted to be a professor. My parents are both educators, but college seemed more what I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily want to teach high school or something like that. So yeah, I've always kind of had the dream of becoming a professor.
So then this will probably you've probably already answered this. It's in like implicit in what you said, but when students are trying to decide should they go to graduate school, should they not go to graduate school, like what advice would you give them in making that decision?
Yeah, so I think if you are really passionate and really want to stay in academia, you want to be a professor, graduate school is essentially necessary. You need a PhD to get a position at a university. So if that is something that students are interested in, I would definitely recommend graduate school. But it's also useful, I would say, even if you don't necessarily want to stay in academia. So we have a lot of students who do their PhDs in our department, and then they go on to maybe work for political think tanks, or they work in different government agencies, or they even work outside in the private sector. We had one of our former alumni come and speak to us, and he currently is working for Gap. And so he does like data analysis for them. So it kind of depends on sort of what you're interested in, but graduate school can be a great opportunity if you're still not quite sure what you want to do after you graduate from BYU Idaho. It can give you an opportunity to kind of dive into and get some experience doing research, which can be really great. But then it can just give you a lot of skills that will be really useful even outside of academia. You'll get a lot of experience doing data analysis, statistical analysis. You'll become really, really good at writing and sort of critical thinking. And so graduate school can be a great opportunity for individuals, even if they aren't sort of interested in becoming a professor.
So a lot of students I think can see themselves maybe getting a master's, but a PhD just seems like crazy. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I totally see that. Like a master's is not as much of a time commitment. So my program is 5 years. 3 years of that is coursework, so you're taking courses, and then 2 years is just working on your dissertation, which is kind of the big project for a PhD. And so, yeah, like if students don't want sort of that huge time commitment, a master's could be a good option and can give them a lot of these skills that a PhD could as well. The only challenge, I guess I would say, to a master's alone is that, from my understanding at least, they often don't have the same funding opportunities. So sometimes for a master's, you will probably have to pay for it, and there's not as many opportunities to have it paid for and get stipends and things like that. So a PhD can be good for getting it paid for, but once again, it's a very, very long time commitment. I would definitely, you would want to be sure that it's something that you'd be willing to give that amount of time for if that was something students were interested in.
Yeah, I've never heard of somebody getting funded for a master's degree. It seems like that's how universities pay their bills is master's degrees. You could though,
Mhm.
if you wanted to, Taylor, you could stop now with your master's degree and it would have been free, right?
Yes, yeah. So you can, I got my master's degree after 3 semesters, so it was only a year and a half. And you kind of get in most PhD programs, you kind of get like a master's in passing, is what they call it. But you can, if you sort of get to the master stage and realize that that's not the PhD isn't what you're interested in, you could kind of end there. I think a lot of PhD programs would prefer you to continue and go all the way to the PhD. Uh, but if it wasn't working out and you didn't feel like you were really enjoying it, they would be fine to just kind of let you get the master's and go forward. So
Yeah. So what did you do while you were at BYU Idaho to prepare for the PhD program? Because I
yes,
imagine it's not easy to get into a PhD program with funding.
yes, yeah. So I think that it was helpful that I kind of knew that I wanted to do graduate school, so that I could take different opportunities to prepare for graduate school. So I think one of the most important for me was really building more knowledge in sort of quantitative research. So like the research methods course that is offered in the political science department was huge, introducing me to R. I don't know if you guys still use R, maybe Stata now.
No, no, it's R.
Oh, it's R. Yeah, R is great. I
Yeah.
love R. So that one was really big in helping me get an introduction to R and kind of getting me going in quantitative data analysis. I also took some additional classes in the statistics department to give me a little bit more background in statistics. And then a lot of the other courses in political science are really good at helping you uh, write really effectively, which is very important for getting into graduate school. So I would say when I applied to different programs, what I believe stuck out to people was that I had a pretty good knowledge of R and quantitative data analysis going into it, which, especially for my program, is something that they're really interested in. We do a lot of that. But then also, you have to sort of write papers. You usually upload like a writing sample, and then you write like cover letters and things like that in your application. And when you have sort of these solid writing examples that show that you are a good writer, that can also boost your chances of getting into a good program. So I would say that writing and then like developing research skills are sort of the two things that really helped me prepare and what I would recommend to undergraduates if they were interested in that path.
Did you do anything outside of class, any extracurricular activities or anything?
So I did a lot of tutoring actually. So outside of the department, I worked for the tutoring center. And so I tutored a lot of students in history classes, political science classes. And then I was also kind of like an academic advising tutor, just helping students sort of understand how to develop good skills, writing skills, reading skills, things like that. And that also, I would say, helped me sort of prepare for graduate school as well, because a lot of graduate programs also have you teach classes. So if you can sort of get some experience working with students, teaching students, working as a TA, whatever it might be, that can also kind of give you a boost because they might be looking for people that have some experience with teaching.
Yeah. So a lot of students I've talked to who went to PhD programs had to apply to a lot of programs and got rejected a lot of times and got maybe just one or two offers. Was that something that you experienced?
Yeah, so I think I applied for probably 15 or 16 different schools. I got accepted to three and then waitlisted for one. But I would say that that's probably not as common from other people's experiences. You tend to get accepted to one, maybe two. And so even I have some friends that I've talked to who will apply 1 year, not get accepted anywhere, and then maybe like take another year to kind of develop their skills, build their application a little bit better, and then will apply again. So sometimes that could be the case as well, where you apply a year after. But I think typically what seems to be the case is that people sort of get accepted to just one or two programs.
Does the GRE matter a lot?
So what's interesting actually about the GRE is it seems to me that it's mattering less and less. So I took the GRE a couple of times and I did fine. but it wasn't like a excellent score. It wasn't a bad score, but a lot of programs actually don't require you to actually submit it anymore. So a lot of the advice that I was given was sort of, if it's not a score that really makes you look good, just don't submit it. And I don't think that me not submitting my score harmed me at all. If you have, especially if you have like a good writing sample, if you have some other skills that you can show will be good for graduate school, those kind of outweigh a GRE. I think a lot of programs are kind of moving away from a reliance on the GRE because it maybe doesn't test the skills that you need in graduate school quite as much. I would say it's probably the most used still, though, in kind of your top schools, your Ivy Leagues, Stanford, places like that. Those schools all require you to submit it, but some of the others actually don't even require you to submit scores anymore.
So they're evaluating you mostly on GPA, maybe, writing sample, and then probably letters of recommendation?
Yes, yes. Letters of recommendation are huge as well. Yeah. So building sort of relationships with professors and people that can write you good letters of recommendation is key as well.
Where did you get your writing sample from? Was it like a class paper or was it like your senior seminar paper?
Yeah, so my writing sample actually came from working with you, Matt. So when I realized that I was going to sort of go to graduate school, so I was originally a history major and then switched to political science when I realized political science was more my interest. But then yeah, so I was told like, oh, you need to talk to Matt Miles if you're interested in quantitative research. And so our project that we worked on is what I used for my writing sample. But yeah, it tends to be from other people that I have talked to. It tends to be sort of like a senior seminar paper, or maybe if some other class has you sort of write a big assignment or a big project paper in that class, you could use that. You tend to want to use some sort of paper that will show off your skills, especially if you use any sort of like quantitative methods. So if you write a paper that has any data analysis in it or statistical analysis, that would be a really good paper to use so that you can kind of show off that you have some skills when it comes to statistics and data analysis.
Yeah, so is that the paper we're about to publish? Is that the one that you used as your writing sample?
Yeah, yep, it is. So it was like our early stages of that paper
That's a
that
cool
we did.
paper.
It was like our first draft of that one that I used. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you can look back and say, that's not the most amazing thing I've ever written, but it was good enough to show I know how to do a literature review. I know how to write about a hypothesis. I know how to collect data and analyze data, which is kind of all you have to show.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything when you were at BYU Idaho that you wish you would have done differently?
Well, that's a good question. I think that even though I did take quite a few statistics classes, I wish that I had taken a few more. Just the more statistics you can get if you want to do quantitative research, the better. I think another thing that I probably wish I would have done more is maybe like lean into sort of your substantive political science classes better. I started my undergrad like sort of at the peak of COVID. So a lot of my first few semesters were just through Zoom and were kind of hard to like, I don't know, give my full effort, I guess, when it was on Zoom. So I think that like not only are like your methods classes really important, but also these substantive classes that teach you about Congress or teach you about the judicial branch or teach you about public opinion. These classes are really, really important as well, so that you can get a good understanding of what politics really is. Because if you do a PhD program, you are expected to produce research and try to answer interesting questions that have to do with politics. And so the more knowledge about institutions or about political behavior that you can have going into a PhD program, the better you'll be able to sort of look for these interesting research questions and come up with or solutions and hypotheses for them. So I think that that is another thing that I wish I had done more is not just sort of do kind of like the surface level assignments and like just the basic things to get me through the classes, but with those substantive classes, try to dig in deeper into understanding politics better.
Yeah. Is there anything that you think students should definitely do that maybe they don't always do that you're like, "Hey, make sure you do this?"
I would say take the research methods class very seriously. I know that when I was there, it was like, I don't know, a lot of people were always like, "Oh, why do we have to take this class? Like, I don't see the point in it." But especially if research is something you're interested in, that class is key and is very helpful. I would also say developing good presentation skills can be helpful as well. So that's one thing that I liked about BYU Idaho is they, especially the political science department, gives you a good amount of opportunities to present in class. And that is really helpful because presentation skills are very useful, not just in a PhD program, but I think across multiple different fields, wherever you might end up. Being able to get up in front of a crowd and deliver a message in an effective way, in a way that your audience is going to be able to understand and grasp what you're saying very quickly is really helpful and is key in a lot of fields. So I would say that like those presentations in classes, take them very seriously, try to do your best. There is, I believe it's probably still at BYU Idaho. When I was there, it was there. There's a presentation practice center that is really great. So you can go there and they can help you sort of develop your slides and make them look better, but they can also help you actually practice your presentation so that you can practice sort of the delivery. I used that resource a couple of times and it was really great. So that's something that I would recommend students rely on. And then also just writing, like really strive to develop your writing skills. And that is, once again, key not just in a graduate program, but key in any sort of job that you might get. If you work in a government agency, you're going to be writing briefs and different documents, and you need to be able to write effectively and write in a clear way. And so there's also, you know, writing resources on campus, the Writing Center, the Academic Success Center that can help you develop those skills as well. And then the professors in the political science department are huge and very helpful in sort of helping students craft papers.
Awesome. Taylor, is there anything else you wanna share? Anything else you wanna say?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that I would just want to like emphasize to students is like really think about doing a PhD. In my department, I work very closely with our department chair, and he continually tells me like, "Hey, if you know anybody at BYU Idaho that wants to do a PhD, tell them to apply here." So they really, really like BYU Idaho graduates. There's three of us now in our department, so we have kind of a good group of LDS students in our department. But yeah, I would say that if you're interested at all in like research, you're interested in like answering cool questions about politics, and maybe you're also interested in teaching, I would highly recommend looking into a PhD program because it's a really great opportunity for you to develop those skills and pursue that. So
That's awesome. Taylor, thanks so
yeah,
much. Good
yeah,
job.
no problem.